All right, welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm back in the booth here today. I've got some of those 57 Chevy truck parts. They are in here and ready to re-prime. Now, you can see obviously we have some body work done. This is on top of that HP770 epoxy high build primer. And what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be putting down 3 coats of their 5300 series, their DTM high build primer. Now this is a little bit different. It's just a traditional type of urethane primer, high build. It's not an epoxy like this was, but it has a bit more build to it because I want to be able to block this stuff down real nice. And then we're going to re-prime it a little later with a little bit thinner version of the 5300 to make sure that we take care of everything and give us just a little bit of room to be able to sand everything down with some 320, some 600, and get it ready to paint. Now the 5300 is a thicker primer, as I said, so we're going to be shooting this out of a 2.5. This is my Sada Jet 100 BP. It's a 2.5 millimeter gun. It's actually designed to shoot polyester, which is what I originally got it for. This primer will shoot pretty thick. It's almost like shooting some polyester primers that are out there on the market. So we're going to shoot this around probably 30-35 psi, probably not even completely wide open on the fluid, but we're going to go lay down. We're going to put 2 coats on the hood. We're going to put 3 coats on each one of those fenders. So it's been about 2 hours. I was spraying this stuff around 85 degrees, giving it about 10 or 15 minutes between coats. It does take a little longer between coats because we're putting it on so heavy. So keep that in mind. Make sure you flash it off real good before you move on to your next coat. You don't want to trap solvents in that stuff, especially going on so thick. Now, as you can see, we got 3 coats on the rear fenders. On the hood, I only put 2 coats down. Now, this is their gray. They do offer this, I do believe, in all 3 colors like they do the other one. So you can get it in white, gray, or black. So it's good to give you options on what you're doing. I like to use the black underneath, and then I'll go with gray on top of that. That way I can easily tell before I cut through and go into the bare metal. All right, so continuing on, this is the next day. I've got both of these rear fenders block sanded down. Now, I went through with some 120 grit and blocked them out real fast. We're not doing some kind of a crazy show car, so we just want to make sure everything is straight and we didn't miss any major problems. So 120 grit real quick on a hard block or a Dura block, nothing fancy. And then I came back with some 180 grit on a DA with an interface pad and just kind of finished it up by hand with some 180 in some different areas. But we're ready to prime. You'll notice I've got a few little cut throughs here. What we're actually going to do is we're going to put 1 coat over the cut throughs, and then we're going to put 2 coats over the entire panel. So as I mentioned, I believe before, we're going to mix this stuff up at 4 to 1 to 1. This is going to be a little bit of a thinner version of that primer. We don't need a whole lot of build. All we're trying to do is get enough primer on there to be able to cut it flat and get it ready to paint. We're going to use the Porpoise PH155, which is a 1.8 gun. We don't need to use that giant 2.5 solder I used before. So we'll use the 1.8. We're going to, like I say, spot in a few places, lay down 2 good coats, and these will be ready for prepping to paint. Alright, got 2 coats on. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to lay down what I call a bougie guide coat. I don't know if I've already mentioned this, but you can get this primer in, I believe, white, gray, and black. And whenever I've got a primer that I can have multiple colors in, I like to use one of the colors as a guide coat. It means it's going to sand the same, it's not going to wash off, you're not going to rub it off. It's going to be there until you sand it away. So I've got a little bit of the black 5300 mixed up. It's probably more like a 4:1 to 3 ratio. I've got quite a bit of reducer in it. I'm not trying to make anything build. I just want to put kind of a black color on it. I'm not trying to really fully color it. Just get something on there that's going to sand the same. It's going to stick in here, and we'll find out any problems that we may have missed when we go to sand it. Alright, so I got that bougie guide coat down. Everything's on there. Like I say, this stuff, it's kind of a nice way to do it when you sand it. Everything sands the same. You don't have to worry about it washing off. It's just one thing I do occasionally. Been a while since I've done it, but this project I've been doing it on most everything. So that's just a little insight on how to use that Tamco 5300 primer. Like I say, it's a DTM primer, a high build urethane. If you're curious about the HP770, I made a video previously when I primed these parts originally with that epoxy primer, epoxy high build. That method I just went through there, where I'll go through with epoxy, then I'll do a really high build primer, and then a thinner version of the same primer. I use that method on just about any kind of a classic restoration, you know, to get them ready to paint. Not necessarily Tamco, but I have been liking the Tamco stuff. This is obviously not the first time I have used this. So hopefully this gives you guys a little information if you're out there looking for kind of a method on how to do something and some product information. Tamco's been working out pretty good for me on these last few projects, so just wanted to share that with you guys and let you know a little bit on how to use it if you don't already understand how to do it. So hopefully you learned a little something. If you did, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and tap that bell, and I'll catch you on the next one.